Welcome to another episode of Reverse Ambition, a podcast that features those who take a leap of faith to follow their dreams of passion. I am really excited to have today's guest. She's a dynamic entrepreneur, but she started out in the human resources human resource field. She worked for PepsiCo, General Mills, Starbucks, and just doing her thing in human resources. And in 2014, she decided to take a leap of faith to join State Farm and start her own insurance agency. Today's guest is no other than Victoria Anderson. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you, Kelsey. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to chat with you and your listeners today. I've heard a lot about the podcast, so I hope I can add some value to all the people out there listening and hoping to be inspired.
Well, I've been a fan of yours forever. Just you being a go-getter, and like I said earlier, how you just took a leap of faith to leave human resources and enter the entrepreneurial world. So I like to, so my guests could get to understand, how you got to where you are. My first questions usually are, take me through your journey in terms of where you're from, where you went to college, what you majored in, and we'll go from there. Sounds good?
Sure. Yeah, it sounds great. So I am a Midwestern girl.
Okay.
Born and raised in Chicago.
Oh, Chi-Town.
And absolutely. And, come from a really large, loving, close-knit, hardworking family. And I think, my journey really starts with a lot of the values that I was taught in childhood about, having a high sense of accountability, doing the right thing, having a strong work ethic. All of that has really followed me throughout my career.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school in the Midwest as well. So I got a master's degree from the University of Illinois, and I studied industrial psychology at ISU, all in the state of Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Before, for me, I think that was a critical moment in helping me to define how, I have a lot of passion about people and kind of the study of behavior, but I'm also very much a business person. And so I always look for that intersection of how can I use, this passion for psychology in a field that would be very strategic and allow me to kind of put that to use in the business world as well. And so I actually kind of stumbled into industrial psychology and immediately loved it. Mm-hmm. And really took a lot of actions to position myself to have these great opportunities in HR by, getting some leadership experience before going to grad school, then going to one of, the better programs from a graduate level. And, from there, things just kind of took off in, the corporate world, right. If you will.
How was the transition from, college into the corporate world, like having an industrial psychology, major? How was that? How did you utilize that to transition into corporate America?
Yeah, so I went to a program. My master's program was, I believe it still is, kind of top 3 for HR and labor relations. And mm-hmm. So I was pretty fortunate that in going there, a lot of the big companies came there routinely to recruit.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's interesting. I'm a bit of a grinder, if you will. So I was really attracted to, I want to work for the company that I know I'm going to have these big, juicy positions and I'll have a lot of responsibility and I'll really get to make a difference. And so at the time that I was graduating, Pepsi was at the top of the list. So okay. I was like, Pepsi or bust.
Wow.
For me. And I just thought it would give me an opportunity to really do good work and mm-hmm. to do it for a brand that, was really recognizable. So that transition for me was really, getting that master's degree, which positioned me mm-hmm. to be attractive to Pepsi, and then being willing to take some risk. It's funny, when they were offering me the job, they asked me to pick 3 places that I would want to live. And so I chose New York City, I chose Texas, and I chose Florida. And so they come back a week later and they're like, yeah, what do you think about California?
Wow.
Well, that wasn't on the list, but, I've always been someone that is pretty flexible and
Mm-hmm.
willing to take a chance if it's a good opportunity. So that led me out to California with Pepsi, and the rest was kind of history from there.
How was your how was transitioning to California? You know, basically your first job out of grad school. How was that transition? New environment. Getting acclimated to the city and all that. How was that?
It was, I would say it was tough. I mean, California is a beautiful place to transition, right? Like you can't get much better in terms of weather, and if you're a pretty outdoorsy person, there's so much to do. But personally, it was certainly tough in that, I'm super close to my family, so that was the first time that I lived so far away from them, and it was really an opportunity for me to quite frankly, branch out on my own a little bit, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't, my family's 2 hours away. It's their 6 hour plane ride away. And
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of really develop some relationships that are literally from scratch. So I would say in some ways it was tough. In other ways, it really positioned me for what was to come, especially with being an entrepreneur, because, it kind of forced me to be super resourceful around building relationships and, making connections and, just being willing to put myself out there in situations that were not initially comfortable for me, but,
Mm-hmm.
that it allowed me to demonstrate a little bit of courage to make myself more vulnerable.
Okay.
But I loved it. I mean, I fell in love with it.
How was it working Pepsi there? Was it everything you expected? More or less. How was your experience with working out there in Pepsi in human resources?
It was awesome. I mean, Pepsi's intense. So they are very much, you're going to work 10 to 12-hour days. They have a very high expectation of your deliverables. But to some extent, that is what I wanted. So I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't surprised by it. I'd done a lot of research on, the company, on their expectations of the, people in leadership positions. So to some extent, I expected it, but certainly it's still an adjustment. I mean, I think it really groomed me well for having to think through, the strategy about people, the strategy about business, and not really having someone hold your hand. They're very
Okay.
much, this is your project. We expect you to deliver. Let us know when you're when you
Right.
have it done. And so that was perfect for being, prepped to be an entrepreneur.
Right. How long were you at Pepsi?
4 years.
Okay. Why did you leave?
So, I think you'll hear this theme throughout our conversation a lot today, Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of being open to the possibilities, and it's really a theme throughout, my personal life, my professional life. I was there at Pepsi, still very much enjoying what I was doing. And I got a call from a recruiter who had seen my, resume on LinkedIn. And she was like, I had this opportunity that I think would be amazing for you. And it's funny, I'm sure you can relate to this. Sometimes life just takes you in directions you never could have imagined. So
Yeah.
I would, I mean, I would generally hang up on those calls. Like,
Uh
no,
huh.
no, no, I'm happy, call me in 6 months, right? But in this particular day, like, I think her energy, the things that she started to share about the position just intrigued me a little bit.
Okay.
And I ended up, taking the opportunity with General Mills. It was a really crazy opportunity in that they had gotten rid of their entire leadership team, got all new people in, and they were looking to completely change like the culture of that particular location and, create new strategy. And so it was really like meaty HR work, the work that you kind of go to school to do.
Right.
So it felt like something that I couldn't pass up because of the experience that I would be able to gain from it.
Wow. How was that experience? Where was it, in LA as well, or California as
It,
well?
it was right outside of LA in
Okay.
Carson, California.
So basically, you basically went into a situation, you were building everything from scratch. It sound. How was that experience? And did you regret making that move, or was it something that was as rewarding as it sounded?
That I didn't regret it a day. I mean, it's probably second to being an entrepreneur. It's probably some of the hardest work that I've done. But I think, and you can relate to this, for those that are entrepreneurs, there's a little bit of energy that comes from what's this problem in front of me and how do I solve it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm very much driven by, problem solving, strategy, kind of taking something that seems really complex and making sense of it. So it was really like perfect conditioning for like
Right.
later positions that came.
Mm-hmm.
But it was hard. I mean, we were in, the leadership team was there 10, 12, 13, 14 hours a day. But there was such a good culture around, we're all committed to this
Mm-hmm.
vision and what we're trying to create, that it didn't really feel like work.
Right. How long were you there, General Mills?
About 2.5 years.
Why so short?
Well, life kind of happened again,
Okay.
and I ended up I got engaged to someone that lived on the East Coast, and so that required a move if that situation was to continue. And so I started to put some feelers out for opportunities in New York, and landed at Starbucks.
Okay. Okay. How was that transition from LA to New York? You know, how was it in terms of like personally and professionally? How, change of weather, change of time zone? Was that, something, was it a very exciting time for you?
Yeah, it was exciting in that, kind of personally, I thought I was about to embark on, this kind of big significant life change, right? So that's always a little bit intimidating, but equally exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But it was definitely tough too. I mean, New York, I'm sure you can relate. I'm from Chicago. I lived in LA, and still I found New York to be one of the craziest cities to adjust to. I mean, the energy here, the people, it's constant. It literally never sleeps. So, that was definitely like, wow, this is like, could not be more different from Los Angeles.
Right, right. Yeah, LA is like laid back. Everyone, I mean, you do work in like California, but it's more laid back, relaxed. New York is always intense. It's always something. Everything is intense in New York, so that's a big adjustment.
It was a huge adjustment, but I think it's funny. I think that I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason, and the experiences that we have throughout our life. Hopefully, if we pay attention to them,
Mm-hmm.
will help us in other areas that are to come. So while they were all, I think, somewhat tough adjustments, they definitely helped me to build a thick skin, and to kind of go back to that theme of being resourceful, being unafraid to be the only one in the room that doesn't know anyone else in the room. Like, it really prepared me well for starting my own business.
Right. So you moved from LA to New York to work at Starbucks. How long were you at Starbucks, and how was that experience?
I was at Starbucks for about 2 years.
Uh huh.
And I've been really fortunate in that I've worked for a number of great brands. I think that Starbucks, their culture is hands down, probably one of the best around. They care a lot about their employees. They care a lot about the brand. And so it was in some ways a continuation of, some of the experiences that I had before, like being in a position where I had a lot of responsibility and I was expected to kind of get results and to impact the culture in ways that are positive. So, I would say it was probably the period of time where it was a bit of a crossroads for me. So, I had mentioned that I moved here for personal reasons, and that, relationship didn't work out. And
Uh-huh.
while I loved the opportunity at Starbucks, I also was starting to feel like, okay, I've been in these amazing HR positions for a number of years, but I also feel a little bit like, why am I not doing this for myself, right? Like, I bring 100% every single day, I get great results. How can I do this where I'm fully responsible, right? Start to
Right.
finish for the direction of the business and what happens. And, I just, really hit a wall of, I love what I'm doing, but I want to do this for me. I want to build a legacy and, and a brand for myself.
Wow. So that's what led you to like in 2014 to like quit and like I'm going into insurance. Why insurance? What kind of inspired you to like that's what I wanted to do? That's where you'll get that level of fulfillment that you were looking for.
Yeah, I would say that was definitely the catalyst to put the thought. I think oftentimes things start with what seems like a random thought, right? Like,
Mhm. Yeah,
and
like
so,
random like why not, let me get
yeah, like, why
uncomfortable.
can't I do it?
Right. You got, making money in Starbucks, living that life in New York. You're like, okay, I want more. Who does that?
Those of us that are crazy enough to become entrepreneurs.
Right, right, right. It's like you have to be somewhat crazy, right, to give up that level of comfort, that security, I'm sure, benefits and whatever perks that comes with working with an amazing company in Starbucks to say, I'm leaving to do my own thing. How was that vibe? How was that experience? Was it were you afraid? Were you excited? How did that came about? How did you make that transition?
I was I was equal parts terrified and excited. I definitely had, it was a calculated risk, but
Mm-hmm.
certainly one that I was nervous to make. I mean, I had a great position at Starbucks. I was making really good money, and so you're kind of faced with, do I have the level of confidence in myself and tenacity and belief that I can walk away from all of this and still make something great happen. So it was definitely intimidating. I mean, I can't say that I thought I'm going to end up in the insurance industry. It was the furthest thing from my mind, to be honest with you. But
Mm-hmm.
what I did know is the type of work that I like to do. So I'd met some people that were insurance agents or that kind of worked in the industry, and just listening to them about the impact they were able to have, the legacy that they were able to build. Quite frankly, the financial rewards associated with it just made me step back and say, wow, this seems like a great opportunity. Now, do I have skills that I think would be useful here and that would allow me to be successful here? So for me, it was less about the industry and
Mm-hmm.
more about, well, what's the kind of work that I like to do? I knew that I liked working with people. I knew that I liked leading teams. I knew that I liked solving problems and building strategy. I knew that I liked making money. So
Right.
I just kind of started dissecting, hey, what are my skills and can they be valuable in this industry? And
Mm-hmm.
no matter if it's HR or insurance, do I have the level of energy and passion that would be a good fit for the business model that I'm looking to start?
Right. So, you know, thinking about making this transition into the insurance industry, start your own agency, did you get the level of support from your friends and family that that was needed in order for you? Did they give you any pushbacks? They're like, you're crazy, or did they like say you got this? Did you get what kind of reaction did you get from your friends and family when you decided to do that?
I'm lucky in that everyone was largely super supportive. I mean, my family, of course, was a little bit concerned because I'm here in New York. They're not here, so it's not like they could kind of jump into it with me and help me when things got tough. So there was a little bit of, are you sure this is what you want to do?
Mm-hmm.
Things are going so well where you are, and my parents are not entrepreneurs, so I think there's a little bit of that natural concern about walking away from something that seems very stable to start something from scratch. But that being said, they were certainly very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that, I can be pretty persistent if I, put my mind and my energy behind something. So I think they were confident that it would work out, but definitely a little bit nervous, for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Okay. Were you financially ready to make this leap? Did you have enough savings? Did you plan for, did you save up? Did you have enough starting out? Or you were like, you know what, I'm just going, taking a leap no matter where I am financially. How was that situation, when you took the leap financially?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I had, so I would say that I have enough. I don't know that you can ever have too much. I
Mm-hmm.
had a little bit of a nest egg that was available for me in terms of capital. But I think even more than that, I had really good credit, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
having great credit gives you borrowing power,
Okay.
where you're able to get additional capital at reasonable rates, so that you're not in a position where you're kind of struggling to make things make ends meet. So I think I kind of position myself over the years, to make really good financial decisions and to kind of have um, uh, very little debt and a solid enough credit where if I did need to borrow, that I would have access. to capital at a rate that was reasonable. So, did I have enough? I'd say I had enough. You can never have too much if you're starting your own
Right.
business. But, I think more than anything, I had I was pretty financially savvy about how to navigate some of these things along the way.
Right. So you say you had, great credit going and, starting to be an entrepreneur. Do you still have that good credit? Because a lot of entrepreneurs go in with good credit, but based off various things that didn't foresee or like not enough planning, their credit sometimes, a lot of times goes, down and so forth. Did you still kind of
Sure.
keep that up? Like, how was that financial maneuvering, being that you had to like lean on, on your credit a lot, as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, so the short answer is yes, I do, but I don't say that to suggest that it was easy, right? So I think I'm a person of a lot of faith. So, I think a lot of my success has been a tremendous amount of hard work and a commitment to my vision. I also feel very fortunate in that, things have really, they have gone even better in some ways than I would have expected. So that's not to suggest it's been easy. I mean, it's a grind. You know this. It's a grind
Right.
every single day. Like if you're successful and you're still growing, you're definitely still putting in that energy. But I think, I've been able to walk into it and so for example, when I was about to open the business, I downsized, I got rid of my car initially. I moved into a smaller apartment. I kind of eliminated any expense that wasn't going to contribute to helping the business grow. So
Mm-hmm.
what that did is it allowed me the first year to reinvest everything that I was making right back into the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really propelled me to grow at a very rapid rate. And so because I was, earning commission and reinvesting it right back into the brand, we grew really, really quickly. And so when you have that level of growth, of course, that comes with additional capital and that allows you to continue to invest. And so it really, I think the best thing that I did was, almost live like a pauper that first year and put everything back into the business because after year one, I was never in the red. So I was
Wow.
able to be kind of in the green. Yeah, I was able to be in the green pretty much right away and to maintain that. But I think it took some sacrifices, certainly the first year or two, in terms of, making really, not taking as many vacations the first couple of years, really just saying the business is the priority. And if I can lay that foundation, it'll pay off dividends in a really quick amount of time.
Wow, you sound pretty disciplined. I mean, this is amazing. So you basically started an office, you find an office from scratch.
Hmm.
Walk me through that process in terms of like finding location, finding the right employees. You said you was never in the red, so I mean, you got everything up and running, reasonably quick.
Yeah.
How walk me through that in terms of how did you do it without being in the red? I mean, besides reinvesting, your funds back into the company. Walk me through that process in terms
Yes.
of.
Sure. So, like from a location standpoint, so my business is located in Westchester County. So, I think the first thing that I decided, when you're licensed to sell insurance, right, you're licensed for the whole state.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm licensed to sell insurance in the state of New York and the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
And so, for me, it was, do I want to put the business in the Bronx, where the cost of a commercial space is double the cost of a commercial space in Westchester, so
Mm.
why not put it in Westchester, right? So that'll save me 50% of the cost just to have the space that I can use on payroll. So
Mm-hmm.
just really being, very strategic about where the money was going. Obviously, if you're going to grow, your biggest expense is going to be marketing and your payroll. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was really passionate about, for the first couple of years, if I have to have a smaller office than I do now, it's worth it because, within 2 years, we can outgrow it. If we're growing the business the right way, we'll have the ability to move into something bigger. So I was very particular about what's the priority. And the priority was branding us so that we could get more customers and
Right.
having people that can meet those customer needs. So all of my decisions were made through that lens. And so, I sacrificed on some things. My first office, I think it was about 450 square feet. And I'm like, you know
Wow.
what? If I can get, yeah, it was tiny,
It's
right?
very
And
tiny.
so, so I signed a 2-year lease, and I'm like, I'm confident I'll grow this in 2 years. And, the focus was, being very modest so that, the investment back into the business would allow us within a couple years to, really have a more grander space and, have the money to continue to reinvest and continue to grow. So just making those decisions around what's the priority and being really clear on the priority.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone wants to grow it as quickly as I did. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay. But I knew that for me, it was, I want to go gangbusters. I want to grow really fast. I'm going to have to put money in marketing and advertising and the team in order to do that. And so every decision that I made was really through the lens of those two things being the priority. So,
Right.
moving into, an area that had cheaper, commercial space, not spending tens of thousands of dollars on the office right at the start, making it look, beautiful and presentable, but being cost effective as I made those decisions so that, the money could be there for the two priorities that were most important.
Right. So after 2 years, were you able to move into a bigger space?
I did. I moved into a space that, was 3 times the size.
Three
I was
times.
able to,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. And, we're able to double the size of the team and, continue to put that energy into growing. That being said, it was still with its challenges, right? So I told you at the beginning of the podcast that, I had a lot of experience in HR, and I thought, well, wow, hiring people and training them will be the easiest part. And it's by far been the hardest part of what I did and still do, every single day. So finding, people that are really committed to the opportunity and that are going to bring that same energy that you do is probably the hardest thing that most of us do as entrepreneurs. So it's still, I think for me, it's balancing as well as it's gone. It's still challenging. And so you can't be afraid of the ebb and the flow that will inevitably happen. You could have an amazing team one day and then 3 people could decide they're leaving within 2 weeks and they could be your 3 rock stars. And so you're kind of, scrambling to find and train and hiring and recruit. And so I think for me, it's being comfortable with the idea that it's constantly going to change
Mm-hmm.
and not being intimidated by that. And that was
Right.
hard for me the first year. That was
Inter.
very difficult because I'm like, hey, I should just get this thing in order and it should just keep plugging away, the way that I said it. And that's not how it really happens.
Well, a big thing I find myself as an entrepreneur is really trusting people to execute my vision and finding the right people to execute your vision. How did you go about, like you said, you had some issues with that. How did you go about finding those individuals, and what was like some specific challenges in doing so, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I think, our industry in some ways is really unique because in order to be in insurance sales, you have to go through the licensing process. So it takes me from start to finish about 90 days just to get someone ready, to really train.
Mm,
And so it's a very lengthy process. And
right.
so, I think it's having a lot of channels where I'm recruiting, not relying on just one source.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also being a little unconventional in what the person's background looks like, right? So
Mm-hmm.
one of my most successful salespeople to date, she was a hostess at Morton's before she came to work for me. But I
Wow.
could tell she was, exceptionally hungry. She was
Mm-hmm.
really, really smart. She was very coachable, and she very much, had a passion for, I want a career and I want it to be something that, will meet her personal objectives. And so I think it was kind of taking off that hat of there's a set model and really looking for, a person's drive and ambition and values and leading with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that has really allowed me to be a little more open minded on the people that I brought, onto the team.
How
But
would
it's definitely still a challenge every single day.
right? How in terms of trusting your team, how is that going in terms of being that you invest so much in them and you expect them to produce? How do you feel about that? Going through that rigorous process of finding your team. How is that? How do you feel about your team right now?
Like I said, so there I have some rock stars on my team, and then I have some people that I'm still coaching
Mm-hmm.
every single day. I mean, you can
Hand
relate to
holding.
this. Yeah, people are people, right? And so, in an ideal world, you'd have a team of 10 rock stars, but that's just not realistic. And that's honestly one of the things that I had to, get past too. Like you want to hire people that are like you, right? That are
Mm-hmm.
driven and that are passionate and take a lot of pride in what they do. And you do hire with that lens, but it doesn't always work out that way. And
Right.
so you have to be, comfortable saying very quickly, this is not the right opportunity for either of us, because
Mm-hmm.
it's your personal dollars when you're an entrepreneur. It's no longer Pepsi's money or Starbucks' money. It's, Victoria's money. And so you have to be very wise about how you spend it. So just getting really comfortable with knowing when something's not going to work out and, in the right way, letting your team member know that and wishing them well, but cutting the cord and
Right.
being, comfortable with not holding on to situations for too long and, being very much in the mind state of you're going to coach and you're going to develop, but if that person can't kind of meet you where you need them to be, you have to make that disconnect. So it's hard. I mean, that's still one of the hardest things that I do. Finding people that are prepared for this type of position. I tend
Mm-hmm.
to hire a lot of millennials, and they
Mm.
sometimes have a different mindset of how
Right.
work and
How
what that
right.
means.
Right. Right.
So
Trust me.
that's often a challenge.
Right. They have certain expectations that's unrealistic. They want, sorry, millennials. This is like the overall perception of you guys. They want everything handed to them. Was that
They
experience?
do.
Right. Right. Yeah, my boy's, good friend of mine, somewhat of a mentor. He said, hire slow, fire fast.
Absolutely.
In terms of, getting the quality people and so forth. So you seem like you're in a, great space. He said you grew 3 times, the initial office space. How long you since 2004? So that you only been in the business, 5 years.
It'll be 5 years in September. Yeah.
Wow. How do you feel about everything in terms of the sacrifices, your growth, where your business is heading, your personnel, in terms of are you still excited about, everything that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it remains exciting because it constantly changes, right? So
Mm,
be it when you own a franchise, to some extent, you make a ton of the decisions, but then there's also that broader vision, for the franchises overall. So I'm constantly challenged by well, this is the direction that the company's taking, and so how do I make my part of that, right? Like my individual agency, kind of match up with that, or I'm always challenged by the team and finding different ways to engage them. So what I love about it is no day is the same and it rarely gets boring. That being
right,
said, that can also be very challenging about it, right? So you really never have an opportunity to rest on your laurels too much, not if you're still passionate about growing.
right,
If I was at a point where I said, I'm great with where we are and we're just going to maintain, it'd be a different level of stress. But because I have a pretty specific vision for where I'd like to take it, that requires me to still be, very engaged and always looking for ways to make it better. I've put some thought to, do I consider opening a second one, or do I just continue to put all of my energy into the one that I have now? So, there are lots of different things that I think about in terms of how to keep it um, exciting. But I can tell you, just whenever you're working with people, there's going to be a mystery element, and that element, I think, keeps it pretty interesting every single day.
right. So you seem like you put a lot of hours. What's your average day? What time does your average day start?
So the answer to that, it depends on where you are in the cycle of things, right? So my first year, it was, I'm there at, 7:30, and I leave when I'm done. If it's, 8, 9, 10, whatever the case may be. Obviously, the more foundation you have and the stronger your team is, it does lend itself to a level of flexibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, right now my team's, pretty self-sufficient, and while I'm still looking for new people, the people that I have now are pretty good at what they do. And so, on an average day, I might be in the office 4 or 5 hours a day. Or if I'm traveling, I may not be there at all. So, the beauty of being an entrepreneur is that flexibility that you have. But the caveat is you have to have great people, working for you to allow that. Otherwise, you're there as much as you were in corporate America.
Right.
So
So
it varies, honestly, depending on kind of what's happening at that time.
so you're not burnt out right now. You were able to have like a well-rounded life. Personal life, business life, everything is in balance. You think, or no?
I would say it is right now. I do see that changing a little bit, right? So if I do consider opening another location, that's kind of starting something else from scratch,
Mm-hmm.
or if I bring on, 2 or 3 more people, that's, training and coaching and developing them. So I'm still very hands on in that way, that I still do a lot of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, as I make changes, that'll lessen my flexibility a little bit,
Right.
which I'm, considering doing before the year is out. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I think, I know you can relate to this. It's about being willing to ebb and flow with what your business needs. There
Mm-hmm.
are weeks where I have tremendous flexibility, and there are weeks when, if there's something urgent going on or the office requires me to be there, I'm there as much as that, as I was the first couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to be, malleable.
Okay. So you seem like quality of life is good. Your business is good. What's your ultimate big picture? What do you want Victoria Anderson Agency to be in the next 5 years?
I want to, so I'd say a couple of things. One, I've found this opportunity to be, one of the hardest things I've done, but also one of the most rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to expose women and people of color
Mm-hmm.
to this opportunity. I think, historically insurance has not been a field where lots of women or people of colors are owners of agencies. And so, I think I was fortunate to be exposed to and inspired by some people in the field, and I want to pay that forward.
Mm-hmm.
I want to let people know it's not as hard as you think, and that yes, it's going to take work and you have to have the commitment and the effort, but you can create something that's pretty amazing and leave a legacy and build a real financial wealth for yourself and for your family. So, I'd like to do, more of that. I'd certainly like to continue growing. My baby, my original office is my baby. And
Right.
so, I just not looking to rest on our laurels, but continuing year over year to see how do we service our customers? How do we continue to add, premium into our book? How do we continue to grow? So, I'm still very hungry. I'm not at the point where I feel satisfied with where we are. So, the next 5 years for me is how many people can I get to be excited about this and help them to have their own agencies, as well as how can I continue to, make mine flourish.
Right. So how you thinking, you're gonna go about doing that, in terms of exposing people of color and women into this field that clearly is very lucrative and rewarding.
So I think it's about, fishing in places where they are, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, a lot of people are very much intimidated by sales. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think when you can expose them to the benefits, when you can teach them, how to do it in a way that builds their confidence, and then people realize, oh, it's not as scary as I thought. This
Right.
is something that I can do with the right level of support and the right level of coaching and development. So
Mm-hmm.
I think, kind of opening their eyes to the fact that it's a realistic possibility if you're
Mm-hmm.
willing to put in the work. And oftentimes, people in those situations just don't have anyone telling them that, right? They
Right.
don't have anyone showing them the ropes. They don't
Right.
have anyone helping them to build their skills and their confidence. So, I make it a priority to look for, people, women or people of color, and, try to give them that opportunity that maybe other people would not.
Right. So, in terms of personal life, you have a strong business. Your personal life is going well as well in terms of, be having time for family, loved ones. You know, is that strong as your business? Because sometimes you got to give and take.
It is. I believe in, this will sound very cliche, but I definitely believe in, work hard, play hard. And you can't be an entrepreneur and do everything that we do and put all of your heart and your passion into it without taking some time to do
Mm-hmm.
some things that help you to recharge. I love to travel. I love to, go to the gym and burn off some energy. I go back to Chicago to see my family, multiple times a year. So I definitely make it a priority to keep that balance so that I
Mm-hmm.
have the energy that I need to give the business, every single day.
Awesome. All right, so we winding down, but before I let you go, any advice? People who are listening to this in corporate America, the job that's not fulfilling, they want to do something with their lives, or do something. Any advice you would give those individuals in terms of, taking a leap? What would be the number one advice you would give someone like that?
That's a great question. Um, I would say narrowing it down to one is really hard, but I would say don't let fear be the thing that prevents you from following your heart and really taking that leap to do something that may feel intimidating. Initially, you have to be calculated about it, right? And so you
Mm-hmm.
have to think through. You definitely have to think through the pros and the cons and the long term implications. But I think with the right level of resourcefulness and kind of willingness to, one thing that I would say I've never been shy about is I will learn from anyone. I don't
Mm.
have to walk into the room and feel like I'm the smartest person in the room. I mean, I might be that, but I'm willing to be humble enough to say
Swag.
I'm
Look at
always
that
going to be.
swag. This is
I'm
the
always going to
Victoria
be
I know. This
humble.
is the Victoria I know. It's all good. That's
you know,
dope.
I'm I'm always going to be humble enough to learn from others, right? And
Right.
that has served me. That has served me so well. I mean, when I
Mm-hmm.
was starting, I met with you know 10, 15 people at different points of their journey. Some had their agencies for 6 months and some for 16 years. And I was willing to sit down and soak it all up and kind of make it my own. So I'd say don't feel like you have to have all the answers. Be willing
Mm.
to be humble, learn from other people, make good decisions, financially. Make sure you're prepared, right?
Right.
Like if I wasn't in a position where I could borrow capital, or if I wasn't in a position where I could reinvest a lot back into the business, it might have limited, the speed of my growth. So I do think you have to think about the long-term implications, but I also feel like you have to be confident in yourself that you will figure it out
Wow.
because you will.
Well, listen, I saw when you first started, and I'm so impressed and amazed in terms of where you are. And just listening to you, I now know for sure why. You were pretty much, like you said, that confident person, and you knew exactly what you wanted, and you put in the work to get it. So I really thank you for sharing your journey with us. And I don't know what else to say. I'm just so like amazed by your journey. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I mean, you're absolutely one of the best as well. I've always been impressed with how creative you are, your ability to kind of make things happen, how you build a relationship. We've had a relationship for some time, and I've certainly learned a lot from you as well. So thank you for the mark that you made on me as I made that transition to New York.
Awesome. Wow. Well, thank you. I didn't know that. I didn't know I had that much impact on you, girl.
You did.
Damn, it take a damn podcast to hear us. All right, let me stop. Let me end this before we get started getting out of pocket.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. I appreciate you thinking of me to be on the podcast today.
No worries. I can't wait to share this with my audience. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye bye. Thank you all for tuning into Reverse Ambition Podcast. It is really a pleasure sharing these amazing journeys with you. It may take some time for you to find your purpose and realize your dreams, or for your purpose and dreams to find you. When it happens, don't be afraid to pursue them. Be more afraid if you don't. Trust God, trust your journey, and most important, trust yourself, and it will all work out. Until next time, I am Kelsey Cooper, the Social Broker. Thanks again for listening.